The story of Jean Béliveau begins in the snowy streets of Trois-Rivières, Quebec, where a young boy first learned to skate on frozen ponds in the 1930s. Born on August 31st, 1931, Jean was the eldest of 8 children in a modest family. His father worked long hours at a power plant to support them all. Winter in Quebec meant one thing for children: hockey. For young Jean, those early morning skates before school sparked something special that would change the course of hockey history. By age 12, Jean stood nearly 6 feet tall, towering over his teammates and opponents alike. His natural skating ability combined with his size made him stand out immediately. While other boys struggled to control puck, Jean moved with unusual grace for someone so tall. His coaches noticed how he never rushed, always seeming to have more time than everyone else on the ice. This calmness would become his trademark throughout his career. The journey to professional hockey began with the Quebec Citadels, where teenage Jean quickly became the team star center. Fans would pack the arena just to watch him play. His statistics with the junior teams were impressive, but what caught everyone's attention was his style: clean, skilled, and remarkably mature. While many young talents relied on flashy moves, Jean developed a reputation for making everyone around him better. He elevated his entire team with smart passes and perfect positioning. As Jean's reputation grew throughout Quebec, so did the pressure. French Canadian hockey fans were passionate and expected greatness from their homegrown talent. This pressure crushed many young players, but Jean responded differently. Instead of becoming boastful or crumbling under expectations, he became more thoughtful and composed. The more attention came his way, the more humble he appeared. His time with the Quebec Aces solidified his status as Quebec's rising star. Scoring records fell one after another. Newspapers began calling him Le Gros Bill, after a popular French folk hero known for his strength and gentle nature. What made Jean different was how he handled success, with a quiet dignity that earned respect from teammates and opponents alike. He never celebrated excessively after goals, instead often nodding appreciation to whoever passed him the puck. Scouts from the Montreal Canadiens watched Jean's development closely. The Canadiens already owned his NHL rights, but Jean chose to remain with the Quebec Aces, where he was earning more money than Canadiens were offering. This created an unusual situation where one of hockey's greatest talents was playing in the Quebec Senior Hockey League instead of the NHL. Canadiens fans grew restless, wondering when they would finally see this promising center in their beloved red, white, and blue uniform. The anticipation built throughout Quebec. Jean Béliveau wasn't just seen as a future hockey star. He represented something more to French Canadians, a homegrown hero whose talent was matched by his character. In a province where hockey wasn't just a sport but a cultural touchstone, Jean was becoming a symbol of pride. His journey from the frozen ponds of Trois-Rivières to the doorstep of hockey's greatest stage was nearly complete. The hockey world waited eagerly for the next chapter, knowing they were witnessing the birth of someone extraordinary, not just a great player, but a true leader whose influence would extend far beyond the rink. In 1953, Jean Béliveau finally joined the Montreal Canadiens full-time, beginning one of the most remarkable chapters in hockey history. His arrival at the Montreal Forum wasn't just a new signing. It was an event. Standing 6'3" with movie star looks and unmatched skill, Béliveau stepped into hockey's most storied franchise wearing the number 4 jersey that would later hang from the rafters. Montreal, a city that lived and breathed hockey, immediately embraced their new center. The Canadiens team Béliveau joined already featured the legendary Maurice "Rocket" Richard, creating a dynamic that would define an era. While Richard was fire and passion, known for his fierce intensity and emotional play, Béliveau brought a different energy: calm, calculated, and elegant. The contrast between these two Quebec icons created a perfect balance. The Rocket inspired fear and excitement. Béliveau commanded respect through his steady presence. Together, they formed the heart of what would become hockey's greatest dynasty. Béliveau's playing style redefined what a center could be. His reach and strength made him nearly impossible to knock off the puck. His vision allowed him to see plays develop before anyone else on the ice. Most importantly, he elevated his teammates. Wingers who played alongside Béliveau often enjoyed career-best seasons. He never rushed, seeming to slow the game down around him while everyone else scrambled to keep pace. Opposing players found themselves mesmerized by his stick handling and precise passing. Success came quickly. Between 1956 and 1960, the Canadiens won an unprecedented 5 consecutive Stanley Cups. Béliveau was central to this dominance, producing points consistently while playing a complete two-way game that coaches use as a teaching model. During these championship runs, his playoff performances revealed another dimension to his greatness, the ability to raise his game when it mattered most. In pressure situations where other players tightened up, Béliveau seemed to find another gear. In 1961, when Maurice Richard retired, the Canadiens named Béliveau captain. The captaincy in Montreal carried special weight. It wasn't just a leadership role on a hockey team, but a cultural position in Quebec society. Béliveau approached this responsibility with characteristic thoughtfulness. Unlike many captains who led through loud speeches or fiery demonstrations, he chose a quieter path. He spoke carefully, led by example, and treated everyone with equal respect, from star players to equipment managers. His leadership style transformed how captains operated in hockey. Before Béliveau, the captain was often the toughest or most vocal player. After him, teams began looking for complete leaders, those who could represent the organization both on and off the ice with class and dignity. Under his captaincy, the Canadiens continued their winning tradition, claiming 4 more Stanley Cups. His teammates often describe how a simple glance or quiet word from Béliveau carried more weight than shouting from others. During the 1960s, as hockey expanded and evolved, Béliveau remained a constant standard of excellence. New fans discovering the sport would point to him as the ideal player, skilled but sportsmanlike, competitive but fair. He rarely took penalties despite playing a physical game. Opponents who faced him regularly spoke of his fairness. He would battle fiercely for the puck but never crossed the line into dirty play. This earned him a unique respect throughout the league. By the end of his playing career in 1971, Béliveau had accumulated 10 Stanley Cup championships, 507 goals, 712 assists, and countless moments of brilliance. His final game at the Montreal Forum saw a standing ovation that lasted nearly 10 minutes. The captain who never sought the spotlight had become the embodiment of hockey excellence. When he carefully placed his captaincy in the Canadiens' locker room for the last time, he left behind a template for leadership that extended far beyond the boards of a hockey rink. Jean Béliveau's retirement as a player in 1971 didn't mark the end of his hockey story, but rather the beginning of a new chapter. The Montreal Canadiens immediately offered him a vice president position in the organization, understanding that his value extended far beyond his scoring abilities. In this new role, Béliveau brought the same calm wisdom to the executive suite that he had displayed on the ice. His transition from player to executive was seamless, a rarity in professional sports where many stars struggle to find purpose after their playing days end. The Canadiens' dynasty continued with Béliveau in management, adding 7 more Stanley Cup championships to his legacy. While he no longer scored goals or made perfect passes, his influence remained throughout the organization. Young players entering the Canadian system would find themselves sitting across from Béliveau, receiving quiet advice about what it meant to represent the team. His presence created a direct link between the team's storied past and its future. Decisions about trades, drafts, and team culture all carried his thoughtful input, maintaining the standards of excellence he had helped establish. Away from the rink, Béliveau's impact on the community grew even stronger. He established the Jean Béliveau Foundation, which raised millions for children's causes throughout Quebec. Hospital visits, charity events, and youth hockey programs all benefited from his dedicated involvement. Unlike some retired athletes who lent only their names to charitable efforts, Béliveau gave his time generously. Parents would tell their children stories of meeting him, how he remembered names, asked thoughtful questions, and treated everyone with the same respect regardless of their status. His relationship with fans remained extraordinary throughout his post-playing years. In a society increasingly defined by celebrity culture and manufactured images, Béliveau represented something authentic. He never refused an autograph or rushed through a conversation with fans. People who encountered him often described the same experience. Béliveau made them feel as though they were the most important person in the room. This genuine connection with people from all walks of life made him more than a hockey icon. He became a model of how to carry oneself with dignity in all circumstances. As an ambassador for hockey, Béliveau traveled widely, representing the sport and Canadiens organization. In NHL boardrooms, his opinion carried special weight. When discussions about rule changes or the direction of the game arose, decision-makers looked to Béliveau for his perspective. He advocated for maintaining the skill and speed of hockey while discouraging the trend toward excessive fighting and rough play that emerged in the 1970s. His vision of hockey emphasized the beauty of the game, the perfect pass, the team play, the respectful competition. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, as hockey expanded into new markets and television contract grew larger, Béliveau remained a connection to the game's roots. New generations of players who never saw him play still understood his importance. When they shook his hand at events or saw him in the corridors of the Montreal Forum, they encountered living history. Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and other superstars who followed spoke of Béliveau with reverence, noting how his example had shaped their understanding of what it meant to be not just a great player but complete professional. Political leaders sought his counsel and company. He was offered the position of Governor General of Canada, the representative of the Queen in Canada, and the highest ceremonial office in country. In characteristic fashion, Béliveau declined this honor, citing family commitments. This decision only enhanced his reputation, a man who valued personal relationships and promises above prestige and power. His choice demonstrated the same priorities that had guided him throughout his hockey career: substance over showmanship, responsibility over recognition. By the turn of the century, Béliveau had transcended sports to become a national treasure in Canada. His legacy was secure not just in record books and championship banners, but in the hearts of people who saw in him the best of what sports could produce: excellence without arrogance, achievement with humility, leadership through service. As he entered his senior years, moving more slowly but still carrying himself with that unmistakable dignity, Jean Béliveau continued to represent the values that had made him the silent leader both on and off the ice. The impact of Jean Béliveau extends far beyond his statistics or even his 17 Stanley Cup rings. His true legacy lives in how he transformed the concept of leadership in hockey. Before Béliveau, the image of a hockey captain often centered on toughness or scoring ability. After him, the role became more complex, a blend of on-ice excellence, locker room presence, and community representation. In Montreal, subsequent captains like Sir Savard, Bob Gainey, and later Sakic found themselves measured against the standard Béliveau established. These players adopted elements of his approach: speaking thoughtfully, leading consistently, and carrying themselves with dignity. This influence spread beyond Montreal. Throughout the NHL, teams began selecting captains who embodied the complete package that Béliveau represented. Players like Steve Yzerman in Detroit, Joe Sakic in Colorado, and Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh, all known for their quiet leadership, consistent play, and professional demeanor, carried forward the Béliveau tradition, sometimes consciously and sometimes through hockey's cultural osmosis. When NHL coaches tell young players about acting like a professional, the shadow of Béliveau's example is often present. The concept of the gentleman player found its highest expression in Béliveau. In an era when hockey frequently celebrated toughness above all else, he demonstrated that skill, intelligence, and sportsmanship could coexist with competitive fire. His games against rivals like Gordie Howe of the Detroit Red Wings showcase intense battles that never crossed into disrespect. This model of competition, fierce but fair, influenced generations of players who learned that true greatness didn't require intimidation or cheap tactics. The Lady Byng Trophy, awarded for sportsmanship combined with playability, came to represent values that Béliveau epitomized. In Quebec and across Canada, Béliveau's cultural significance transcended sports. For French Canadians in particular, he arrived at a pivotal time in Quebec's history. The quiet revolution of the 1960s marked a period of intense social and political change, with Quebec asserting its distinct cultural identity. Béliveau became a symbol of French-Canadian excellence on a national stage. Unlike the fiery Richard who sometimes became a lightning rod for tensions, Béliveau's dignified presence offered a different model of French-Canadian identity, assured, accomplished, and commanding respect without demanding it. The honors bestowed upon Béliveau throughout his life reflected his unique standing. His induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1972 came immediately after his retirement, without the customary waiting period, a rare exception that underscored his special status. Canada awarded him the Order of Canada, the country's highest civilian honor. Streets, arenas, and scholarships bear his name throughout Quebec. These formal recognitions, while significant, pale in comparison to the personal testimonials from those who knew him. Former teammates speak of his calming influence during playoff pressure, how his confident "we'll be fine" could settle an entire nervous locker room. Rivals recall how he would help them up after a clean check, competing intensely without animosity. Young players who entered the league in the 1960s describe his small kindnesses, advice offered quietly, encouragement given sincerely. Equipment managers, arena staff, and team employees remember how he learned their names, asked about their families, and treated them with the same respect he showed to team owners and hockey legends. Media members who covered him for decades note how he never evaded tough questions after losses but also never criticized teammates publicly. His interviews, given in both English and French, were thoughtful and measured regardless of the circumstances. In an industry now defined by sound bites and controversy, Béliveau's media approach seems almost from another world, reflective, genuine, and always conscious of his responsibility as the face of the franchise. The countless personal stories about Béliveau share common themes: his exceptional memory for names and faces, his genuine interest in others, his unfailing courtesy. A young fan who received a handwritten letter in response to his birthday card. A rookie player nervous about joining the Canadiens who found Béliveau waiting to welcome him personally. A hospital patient surprised by an unannounced visit that stretched into hours of conversation. These moments, multiplied thousands of times over decades, form the foundation of Béliveau's reputation, not just as a hockey great, but as an exceptional human being. This human dimension of the Béliveau legacy perhaps explains why his influence remains so strong. Many great athletes are remembered for what they accomplished. Béliveau is equally remembered for how he conducted himself. In a sports culture that increasingly celebrates individual achievement and personality, his example offers a different path, one where team success, personal conduct, and community responsibility hold equal importance to individual statistics and accolades. The Béliveau legacy suggests that how you play the game and how you treat others ultimately matters more than what you achieve for yourself. When Jean Béliveau passed away on December 2, 2014, at the age of 83, the response transcended the typical mourning for a sports figure. The nation of Canada paused to honor him with a state funeral, a recognition normally reserved for prime ministers and national heroes. The Bell Centre in Montreal, which had replaced the old forum where Béliveau had played, opened its doors for a public viewing where thousands lined up for hours in December cold to pay their respects. Many who came had never seen him play but understood his significance to their parents, their city, and their country. The funeral itself brought together generations of hockey players, political leaders, and ordinary fans. Prime Minister sat alongside fourth-line players who had briefly shared a locker room with Béliveau decades earlier. The ceremony highlighted not just his achievements but the qualities that had defined him: dignity, kindness, and unwavering integrity. As the funeral procession moved through the streets of Montreal, people stood silently on sidewalks, some holding Canadiens jerseys or simple signs reading "Merci, Jean." This farewell demonstrated how thoroughly Béliveau had transcended sport to become a cultural touchstone. Though Béliveau is gone, his influence remains woven into the fabric of modern hockey. When NHL players visit children's hospitals, participate in community programs, or conduct themselves with professionalism during interviews, they follow paths he helped establish. The expectation that star players should also be exemplary representatives of their teams and communities stems largely from the standard Béliveau set. His approach to the game, playing hard but clean, competing fiercely but fairly, continues to shape how hockey defines greatness. The Jean Béliveau Trophy, awarded annually to the NHL player who demonstrates outstanding community service, ensures that his name remains connected to values beyond athletic achievement. His charitable foundation continues its work supporting children's causes. Throughout Quebec, the Canadiens organization maintains his legacy through various initiatives that honor his memory while supporting the community causes he championed. Former recipients of his mentorship have established their own charitable efforts, creating a ripple effect of positive impact extending far beyond his lifetime. Today's hockey, with its emphasis on speed, skill, and analytics, might seem distant from the game Béliveau played in the 1950s and 1960s. Yet, the core lessons from his career remain remarkably relevant. In an era where social media amplifies every statement and action of public figures, Béliveau's thoughtful approach to communication offers a valuable template. His understanding that leadership requires listening before speaking resonates in today's team environments. The way he carried himself with the same dignity, whether facing triumph or disappointment, provides a blueprint for handling the intense spotlight of modern sports. For players navigating the pressures of professional hockey, Béliveau's example demonstrates the power of consistency in effort, in conduct, in values. He showed that respecting opponents, officials, media, and fans doesn't diminish competitive fire, but channels it more effectively. His career reminds us that lasting legacy comes not just from statistical achievements, but from the impact one has on others and the game itself. In locker rooms across the NHL, his name still arises when coaches and veterans discuss what it means to be a true professional. What made Jean Béliveau the silent leader was not actually silence. He spoke when necessary, but rather his understanding that leadership comes more from actions than words, more from consistency than dramatic gestures. He knew when to speak and when presence alone was sufficient. He recognized that true authority comes not from demanding respect, but from earning it daily through small actions and consistent principles. This approach to leadership transcends hockey, offering lessons applicable in business, education, politics, and community life. The final measure of Jean Béliveau's impact might be found in a simple observation. In a sports culture increasingly defined by highlight reels, contract figures, and controversy, his name still evokes something different, a reminder that greatness can pair with goodness, that excellence doesn't require arrogance, that strength can manifest through gentleness. For those who knew him personally and those who only knew his reputation, Béliveau represents an ideal worth preserving in hockey and beyond, the possibility that one can compete at the highest level while maintaining perspective on what truly matters. In the storied history of hockey, filled with remarkable talents and colorful personalities, Jean Béliveau stands apart not because he scored more goals or won more championships than everyone else, but because he showed how athletic greatness and personal character could form a seamless whole. His legacy reminds us that how we conduct ourselves in pursuit of our goals ultimately matters more than the goals themselves. In this way, Gros Bill, the gentle giant from Trois-Rivières who became hockey royalty, continues to lead, silently but powerfully, long after his final shift ended.